And we're live. Welcome back, everyone, to a new episode of the Wheelie Podcast. I'm your host, Mike Atoll. I'm joined again by by Electrek's publisher, Seth Weintraub. How's it going, Seth?
I'm good.
Awesome. And it's a great start to this week's pile of e-bike and other assorted two-wheeled, three-wheeled, and some tracked news this week. So we've got a pile of different stories here. It's going to cover some new electric bicycles, both on the super lightweight end of the spectrum, as well as some pretty ridiculous heavyweight electric bicycles. Then we'll move into some electric motorcycle news, from dueling cannonball runs to an upcoming Harley-Davidson electric motorcycle that will be unveiled soon. And then we've got some other cool, interesting vehicles, including a weird solar-powered three-wheeled electric RV. So where are we starting off this week, Seth?
All right. Mini Cooper maker launches 4 new electric bicycles with regenerative braking.
Okay, so this is Cooper Bikes, which, if you're not familiar with, we're not going to hold it against you. I wasn't familiar with until I wrote this story and learned about these new bikes myself. But Cooper Bikes is the bike arm of the original Cooper team that teamed up with Mini to make the Mini Cooper. It was like a racing version of the Mini. This is like back before bought by BMW and everything. So Cooper Bikes just released these 4 new bicycles. They don't even look like electric bikes to me. I mean, they're like, super narrow tubes. Everything's hidden, and part of the cool sort of stealthy design comes from the fact that they used this electric bike kit called the Zeus. I think that's how it's pronounced, and it hides everything inside of the rear wheel. So it makes this really clean looking electric bike because that rear hub motor is the motor, it's the controller, it's the battery, albeit a very small battery at 173 watt hours, but everything's back there. And so it makes it just, really clean looking, really elegant. And it also has a neat trick that it can do regenerative braking. So the Zeus company, they call this an infinite range system, which has always rubbed me the wrong way, because theoretically, yes, you can run it in this regenerative mode where as you pedal, you're recharging the battery, which answers one of the most common e-bike questions that people give you on the street, which is, does it charge when you pedal it? However, doing so is super inefficient. You might as well just charge it at home and use that extra electric assist whenever you need it, instead of having to pedal extra hard half the time to recharge your battery. Because even if you have a 90% efficient system, you're still going to end up using more of your own energy than you would have if you had just charged off the wall. But if you're running low on charge and you're feeling extra strong yourself that day, you can always put it in regenerative mode and pedal at like 125% of the resistance you would feel on a pedal bike, and start charging your battery. So it does have some cool features with regards to regeneration. But really what it is, it's just like a very minimalist, lightweight, stealthy type of electric bike kit that allowed Cooper Bikes to really make these super clean and really elegant looking e-bikes. What do you think of the design, Seth?
I like the idea. I mean, obviously, you're not going to be able to tell that this is an electric bike unless you look at the rear hub. It sounds a little bit like the Copenhagen wheel idea, where the batteries and the controller are all in the hub, I guess.
Yeah,
How does it
definitely.
how does it know when to accelerate and when to regen?
So it's using sensors built into the wheel that can basically tell when the chain is being pulled. So
Okay.
just spinning itself won't cause it to apply any electric assist. It's got to feel that torque from the chain pulling on it, which is kind of, another neat trick. There's some nice technology built into it, but it's not going to be like a high power or a long range system or anything.
And how does it know when to brake? The same thing when it feels.
Yeah, I think when the torque sensor just feels, a lack of any power applied to it, then it's just going to give up any electrical assist. In terms of applying the regenerative braking, I believe the brakes have sensors in them, like a lot of throttle controlled e-bikes where they'll have that brake cutoff,
Right.
so that way it knows to apply regenerative braking.
And I imagine that if you hit the brakes just a little bit, it'll hit regen, and then if you go a little bit further, it'll actually use the real brakes.
Yeah, and regen is really nice in that you can use it just like you're saying, you can kind of just do a little bit of braking and then you don't really use your mechanical or hydraulic brakes, you save those pads. But the whole Zeus like infinite range thing is has always kind of irked me because it
Yeah.
seems like uh, a little bit of a cheating nomenclature for that kind of
Well,
system.
everything's infinite as long as you have legs, right?
Yeah, there you go. But
Um,
yeah, I mean, in total, I think it's a nice looking design for sure.
it's a nice looking design. I like the idea. I mean, it's you start to get where it allows you to do things like, for instance, you could probably take off the rear wheel and put on a normal rear wheel and have a normal bike if that's what you're after that particular day. Um, that's kind of the Copenhagen wheel idea. Um, you could also like put this on a stand, and I forget the bike company, really cool bike company we saw in at Eurobike that allows you to use it as an exercise bike, and you actually
Rayvolt.
generate, yeah, Rayvolt, and you can generate electricity. I'm sure there's a way that this apparatus could do something like that as well. You could
Yeah,
generate all your electricity for outdoor use inside or something. I don't know. There's
I
just
could, I could
lots of
definitely see
options.
that here. Yeah, that regenerative braking would make it possible if you put this on like a bike trainer or something. So that would
Right,
be kind of a cool way to use that sort of infinite range idea.
right. Yeah, that's cool, and a great design as well. All right, moving on. New electric bicycle powertrain claims to be the lightest in the world, adds just 3.2 kilograms or 7 pounds for those of us in the US.
Yeah, 7 pounds. That's not a lot of weight for an entire e-bike system. This is the
That's
I
like a
want to say
baby.
Molly.
That's a newborn.
Just add a newborn to your bike. You don't even have to
Right.
add the weight of the seat. Just the mass of a newborn.
Yeah, it's like being 8 months pregnant. That's it.
Which we'll all have to imagine what that's like.
Right.
So this is, I think it's pronounced the Molly or the Mali X20 kit. And, for just 7 pounds, this has everything that it takes an OEM to build an e-bike. Now, this is not a, pop it on your own mongoose in your garage type of kit. This is designed for companies that want to build their own e-bike brand. But, this includes a battery, a hub motor, display. There's even an auxiliary battery option. So if you want to double your range, and everything's included in this super lightweight package. I mean, the motor itself is just 1.4 kilos or 3.1 pounds. There's all the connectors. There's even that top tube button, so you can have like a minimalist display if you don't want the big handlebar display. And this replaces the company's previous, I think it was the X40 or X35, I want to say. So, this is not their first run at this. Molly has been building these lightweight electric bike powertrains for a while, and we've seen them on a number of different bikes. Greg LeMond's electric bike line uses the former version of this, and now that this new kit is out, there's already a couple bike companies coming out with this new, even lighter version. So what this is allowing companies to do is just continue shaving off those grams and making these super lightweight electric bicycles, which is going to be great for road bikers, people who are training for long races, that sort of thing.
Yeah, it's additive. So, like if you're building an electric bike and you've got a 40-pound um, powertrain, you actually have to build a thicker bike to hold that powertrain. And in that process, it's additive. You're actually adding more weight because you need to be thicker. So this probably allows most bike companies to start off with the same bike that they have without any electric gear on it, component wise. And then this bike that we're looking at in the video, it looks exactly like a acoustic bike. By the way, that dude's calf looks like it weighs 7 pounds. These bikers are pretty thick. Yeah, so that's great, and it's got the what 250 or 250 uh, watt hours of capacity. How many watts is the actual bike motor?
I think it's 250. It might even be less. There's no way it's
Okay,
going to be over 250 watts. So you're talking about a pretty low power motor here.
right, and 23 nanometers of torque. Um, that goes up to 55.
So
Um,
what they said that
yeah.
it's like equivalent to a mid-drive motor that would be putting out 55 newton meters of torque.
Hmm.
Not quite sure how to interpret that claim, but that's what they say, that the 23 newton meters is fairly low compared to other motors you'll see, but they say that it's equivalent to a 55 newton meter mid-drive.
Okay, so certainly not the most powerful. Won't get you kicked off the bike trail though. And at 7 pounds, like pretty much, that's like a water bottle, a big water bottle. So cool.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you're talking 20-pound e-bikes at this point.
Right. All right. Something I really love hearing about. FREY CC fat tire e-bike unveiled as 1500-watt full suspension electric comfort bike.
So the FREY CC, which I know Seth is already a fan of because he has one of these,
Yep.
is FREY Bike's sort of commuter upright. I don't want to say city bike, but more of like a comfortable sort of hybrid bike for FREY because they're big into high power electric mountain bikes. So the CC has always been there. I'm going to work instead of taking the trail bike. And in the past, they've used, I think it was 2.5-inch tires on it, but they just released a new version with a wider frame so that they could put on full fat tires. So now they've got a dedicated fat tire, yet still sort of comfort, almost cruisery trail bike geometry here with the CC. So, it's still got everything we know about FREY. It's still got their high end suspension. It's got their 1500-watt Bafang Ultra mid drive motor. We're still looking at, I think it's those same 4-piston Magura M5E brakes, which are like, some of the best electric bike brakes in the industry. And it's got all of that, high power, high quality build, but now it takes it from just an urban sort of comfort commuter bike into really, you could take this on some decent trails. It doesn't have that same aggressive geometry of their downhill bikes, but you could do some serious trail riding and some probably light downhill trails on this bike. But Seth, you've got more experience on the FREY CC, so why don't you let me know what you think of turning that bike into a fat tire bike.
Yeah, so if you're looking at the screen here, I have the red bike down here. FREY was nice enough to hook me up with that, and it's been fantastic. The one problem I've had, and this is a typical problem with the Bafang Ultra motor, is that it's too powerful for the chain and the sprocket set in the rear. So I shifted gears while going up a hill, and it just started grinding through my the teeth on the lower gears on my bike. So now now I can't go below third gear, so it's hard to go over 30 miles per hour, which like
So sad.
yeah, it's very sad for me. This is a 35 mile per hour e-bike, and I'm looking at this and I'm wondering, like, it's the exact same frame, it looks like, or very similar frame. Um, the rear thing might be a little different. There's no rack on the new one, but I wonder if these tires would actually fit on the original one. I'll have to go down and look and see if there's enough room between the um
Yeah,
uh
that swing arm there, I think, is going to be wider on the fat version.
is it
Unfortunately, I don't think you'll be able to fit those tires on yours because I'm pretty sure they had to rework that swing arm. Plus, your fork, I don't think would fit a fat tire. That could be swapped out, but the
right?
swing arm's where it would be. Though you might be able to put that swing arm on your like the main frame.
Yeah, yeah. And I was thinking about outfitting it with a belt drive as well, so that would be a reason to pull out that whole swing arm. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. This is a you know the CC is a really nice bike. It's kind of overkill in every single way. Like it's a very soft full suspension bike that you're riding on streets with. So it doesn't have a back lockout, which if you guys like to pedal, it gets a little squishy. But like frankly, I'm going 30 miles per hour on the streets here, so I don't have to ride on the side. It gets me up hills at 20 miles per hour, probably, like steep, significant hills. And I'm still pedaling, so I'm getting a little bit of exercise. But mostly I'm going the speed that cars are going. So I can imagine this fat tire bike's going to be very similar to that, but it's going to have the ability to go off road. So it's a curious combination because like this has nothing of what a commuter bike should be anymore. Like the only thing that the original CC had that was kind of like a commuter bike was the tires. The soft full suspension and the I guess I don't know, the sprocket set was kind of a wide range, but just with so much power, you really only use a few gears. So this is going to be off road. I also noticed that the brakes on the original CC are a little thinner than the new ones. It looks like there's more area for the with a
Yeah,
pad,
this
which
this do look beefier.
yeah. So that probably means with the bigger tires, the heavier tires, they're going to need a little bit more braking. But it's going to be a solid bike. Probably a lot of fun. Legal nowhere, but that's
Yeah,
what you
the
get.
ride should be. I mean, I'm just curious how much of a cloud it's going to feel like you're riding on, because already the normal tired CC, like I could take that off 12-inch drops and you almost didn't notice that
Right.
they were there. So with fat tires, I mean, that thing just must be like riding a mattress down the road.
Yeah. Yeah. It's the most soft ride you're probably ever going to see on a road, you know, directed bike.
Yeah, and I get a lot of questions from people, especially older riders that want a commuter bike that they can actually ride around town and deal with potholes and that sort of thing, but they want a full suspension bike, and there just aren't very many full suspension sort of comfort hybrid, almost cruiserish geometry bikes out there. So the CC is one I recommend, but it is quite expensive. I think it's like $4,500. Though this one, I believe they're starting at something like 42 or so with a discount maybe. Um, and so 4480, yeah, so it's about 4,500 bucks, and that's expensive, but then again you're getting some really nice parts here. 1,500 watts, very nice suspension. This is not like city commuter suspension, this is serious mountain bike suspension. The hydraulic disc brakes that are, again, like downhill mountain bike brakes. So there's a lot of value here, but it's not a cheap bike, unfortunately.
Yeah, and so I know Frey doesn't really have a U.S. importer partner. Are they still uh, kind of telling you that you have to figure out how to get it from China, or is there like a more specific route now?
So they're shipping directly to consumers in the US. They've sort of gotten their shipping figured out a lot nicer.
Uh-huh.
Um, Occasionally they've done group buys where if you can get like, 20 or 30 people together, then you can save significantly on the shipping, because I think shipping's probably another 500 bucks or so. But they're actively looking for a US distributor. So if you or anyone wants to become a FREY distributor and start selling these amazingly powerful, high quality electric mountain bikes, then FREY would probably love to talk to you.
Yeah, interesting. Huh. Maybe that's something we should look into. You know who would probably enjoy this? Eric over at Luna. Does he even?
Yeah.
This might be
This
up
is
his
of
alley.
that caliber, I would say. Yeah.
Yeah, we should give him a call about these. All right, moving on. Uh, how do you pronounce this word? C3STROM? C3STROM Astro combines e-bike design with motorcycle styling for a fast, new electric moped.
I'm going to go with your pronunciation because that's better than anything I came up with.
Okay.
So the Cestrum here, this is a really neat looking design. If you're listening to the audio of the podcast, go look this one up on our site, or just Google C3STROM Astro, because this is a motorcycle styled electric bike that they've done some neat things I haven't seen before. Not only does it have that sort of Super 73-ish seat in a boxy mini bike frame, but they've actually wrapped what's normally a detachable battery in frame members here. It's probably still detachable, but it's not set up like a top tank style motorcycle battery that we see a lot, also in Super 73 actually, and it's not mounted on the down tube, which is the other common area. So they've done some sort of novel design work here, and then they've paired it with that dual crown fork. They've got those big motorcycle headlights, the mag wheels, so they don't have bicycle spokes. Of course, the 20-inch fat tire size, so it looks, a lot more proportionally like a motorcycle wheel. So there's some very sort of interesting design work that's gone into this Astro e-bike. And then when you move to the spec side, it's also a good performer. So we've got that class 3 designation, which means 28 miles per hour or 45 kilometers per hour for anyone who uses a more sensical unit of measure. There's a big battery. It starts at 780 watt hours on the entry model, which is already above average for the industry. But then it goes up to over 1,000 watt hours on the Astro Pro model. And then the prices are actually pretty decent. It starts at 1700, 1699, that is, for the entry level model. But that still gets you, a 28 mile per hour e-bike with a big battery and 4-piston hydraulic disc brakes. Then I believe it's another $200 or so for the higher capacity battery version. And then what they don't advertise as immediately on the site is that even though these are 28 mile an hour e-bikes, they can actually be unlocked to get like 3 or 4 miles per hour more out of them, up to about 32. I think that's about 53 or so kilometers per hour. So it's a pretty high performance electric bike here. It doesn't have the mid-drive motor that a lot of the nicer sort of motorcycle style bikes have, but for this price, $1,700, I think that it's going to compete pretty well with like a Super 73, maybe the entry level Super 73 ZX, or some of the other mini bike style electric bikes out there, because it's got both the performance and, in my opinion, a pretty good look. What do you think, Seth?
Yeah, it's futuristic. It looks like what Super 73 or Juiced would put out in like 5 years or something. From a design standpoint. Um, does it have a gear set, or is it just a 1 speed? I can't tell from any of these.
Yeah, I believe it does have a 7 speed on it. It's one of
Uh-huh.
those bikes that I don't know how many people would actually use it, but I
Right.
do believe it's got either a 6 or 7 speed transmission on it.
Yeah, and I mean, I love the design. Like, it definitely harkens to motorcycles with the high battery. But I also like wonder also that, you know, how much better the bike would ride with a low center, lower battery center of gravity. I think juice bikes have a little bit lower. They're on the down tube. Um, Super 73s are usually up high like this. Um, and I actually wrecked on a Super 73, so I wonder if that had anything to do with it. Probably not. It was probably the big curve that I hit.
Oh,
Oh,
geez. Well, we can blame it on whatever you want.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, it looks like a
Yeah.
cool bike. Does this company have like the production chops to knock this out, or?
Yeah, so the C-Strom itself is a new company. They've been working on this design for apparently 2 years, and they're launching it soon. But the company executives have been in the e-bike industry for nearly a decade with different companies. So it's not just some fly-by-night company, which sometimes you have to worry about because there are a lot of these new startups. But this one actually comes from people that have been working in the e-bike industry across Asia for a long time. So that's, confidence inspiring compared to some of the new companies that we see.
Hmm.
I
Yeah, they
also like
look
that
pretty
rear
cool.
rack option on there. It sort of turns it into almost like a utility motorcycle as opposed to just a neat looking sort of aggressive bike. You can, stick some stuff back there, which would be nice.
Yep. Probably no people though, right?
I'm guessing not. I don't know if I'd want to ride on the back of one of these either.
It's kind of low. All right, cool. All right, moving forward, check out this solar electric RV that is both a camper and an electric boat and a bike.
So this is one of the coolest things I think I've seen in a while. It's I don't even know where to start beginning to describe this. So in theory, it's classified as an electric tricycle. but it's really a boat hull on a tricycle frame with a camper or RV interior. It's built to fit into an electric bicycle classification. It's designed by this Latvian company called Bree Triton or something. It's the latest version of their Z Triton electric RV, and it's really designed for sort of like going on a 1 or 2 person Euro trip and having your own self-contained pedalable RV that if you wanted to take it out into the canals or some not super choppy water, you could do it. This is not obviously for open sea. It's not that type of electric boat, but for, lakes, canals, that sort of thing, you could literally ride your electric tricycle right into the water. You fold up the 2 wheels, you attach these inflatable stabilizers, like little pontoons on either side. You drop this little electric outboard motor down from the cabin, and you just start like, sailing around in a canal. It's really a interesting design. I mean, it's obviously a super niche type of product, but the fact that you can have a 2 person camper or RV that you can literally pedal around, you can recharge the battery using the solar panels on the top. It's only like 100 watts of solar panels, so you're not going to be getting like a full charge in a day, but you could get some, decent charge, especially if you're parked somewhere for 2 or 3 days. You might be able to recharge the battery, and it's got everything you need to just sort of camp out right there in your camper.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Like it's kind of the kitchen sink. And we're watching the video here as well. It's interesting because like are you supposed to be able to lay flat in that? Is like I don't quite
Yes,
understand.
I think there's a picture in one of the galleries there of 2 people laying in it,
Okay.
and it's pretty cramped, but there's this neat feature where the steering wheel pops off, and
Okay.
so you get more headroom that way because you can just pull it off. I think that's the boat's steering wheel when you're in there. The bow is actually the tail of the RV, so it's kind of backwards when you're using it in boat mode,
Hmm.
but theoretically it is designed for 2 people that are fairly, know each other intimately to sleep
Right.
in this thing.
Right. It's not like a bro type of adventure. Uh
As long as one of you is comfortable being the big spoon.
okay. All right. So yeah, there's a lot to say about something like this. It seems like a really fun idea, but in practice, maybe like I can't imagine that boat travels very fast. You're hauling around a battery for a boat. You're also biking around a quite heavy thing, but this guy the guy in the video appears to be able to do so. Um,
So one of the things helping him is the fact that that motor is the same motor in the FREY CC Fat we just looked at. That's the Ultra motor. So that's going
okay,
to help.
yeah, uh, that's actually a good use for the FREY CC motor versus like putting it on a commuter bike, which goes like 35 miles per hour. Um, yeah, it just seems like that would be such a heavy thing to haul around, and then the solar thing, at 100 watts is definitely not going to charge the battery too much. More like keeping your iPhone charged. 100 watts. That's like throughout a day. You're talking about maybe five, like a half a kilowatt hour.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I think the battery's closer to like 1,000 watt hours. So if you had perfect sun for 2 days, you might recharge the battery if you
Right.
weren't also using it, if you were parked somewhere for a couple days.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's a cool idea. They're even showing that there's a place for a plant. Uh, you know,
You take your herb garden with you.
yeah, yeah. It's a neat idea. It's certainly like as a proof of concept. It's pretty fun to think about. And I don't know.
I
It's
like that
definitely
it exists.
it exists. Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah,
Got to
it
buy
is
one.
$16,000. I think 15 before like taxes and shipping and such. So don't think that you can just like buy this on a whim. 15,000 bucks is not cheap,
You know
but
what
I
though?
like that it exists.
There's some recent Mueller bikes that are 15,000 and they're just bikes. So That's a pretty
Yeah,
good,
I think that's how I described it, as expensive for an electric tricycle and cheap for an electric RV.
right. Yeah, that's cool. I'm glad it exists, like you said. All right, moving forward, Harley Davidson's LiveWire drops teaser video for new electric motorcycle to be unveiled next week.
I am super excited for this. Oh man, this is one of the unveilings that I've been looking for most this year. Harley Davidson, for anyone who doesn't know, has one electric motorcycle model. That's the LiveWire One. LiveWire is their sub brand that they spun out of the main Harley Davidson line to focus entirely on electric motorcycles. And as you can imagine, if they're making an entire sort of sub brand, there's going to be more e-bikes to follow. So the what is expected to be called Del Mar, or Del Mar S2, is the next electric motorcycle. What we're looking at here are two concept art images that Harley has released in the last 3 to 4 years. And we haven't seen anything in the last few years in terms of updates to the design. So we're not really sure what it's going to look like. We have seen some patents related to the battery and frame architecture that they're going to use. So we expect that the battery area of the bike is going to look like what we're seeing in those concept images. But other than that, we really don't know what to expect with this upcoming bike. What we do know is that it's going to be positioned as a middleweight electric motorcycle. So whereas the LiveWire One from Harley Davidson is a 110 mile an hour, 80 kilowatt or so, it's like 105 horsepower bike, which is, it's their flagship motorcycle. It's fairly high performance. This new Del Mar bike is going to be a lighter, less punchy bike, which is probably going to cost, if not significantly less, then a good amount less than a $22,000 or $23,000 LiveWire One. And so this will hopefully be the bike that actually makes Harley Davidson's LiveWire quote unquote affordable to the common man. We don't know numbers yet, so it's hard to say. If they bring this in at like 19,000 versus the 22,000 LiveWire One, it's not going to really make a huge difference. But if they can hit closer to zero prices, which start at somewhere around like $10,000, $11,000, then it's going to really open up the market so that Harley Davidson can really begin scooping up more than just the rich, I'm collecting this electric motorcycle because it's one of a thousand type of riders. So I'm very excited for what's to come, but unfortunately we don't have a lot of information about what's to come until May 10th, which is in 3 days.
Yeah, and so it's going to probably have a lot of the Harley, like the app and the charging. Harley has a DC fast charging. Hopefully that'll carry over to this as well. What other kind of stuff are we thinking on here?
So it's it's like a totally open, blank canvas here.
Right.
So they could really go so many different ways. I really hope they keep that DC fast charging, like you said, because if they're trying to pare this down, remove some of the technology that's gonna add to the cost, that could be something that hits the cutting room floor. But hopefully that stays, because that's one of their big advantages over Zero,
Yep.
is that with Zero you're limited to level 2 charging, which, to be fair, if you use Zero's upgraded chargers, can be done in 2.5 hours. But if you're not getting the upgraded chargers on a Zero, you're stuck with an overnight charge. It could be 10 hours. So I really hope they stick with that DC fast charging. The battery is almost certainly going to be smaller.
Hmm.
The LiveWire One's battery is 15.5 kilowatt hours. So this is going to come in below there. Zero's batteries start at 7 kilowatt hours, though the usable is something like 6.5. So it'll almost certainly be above that, because they're not going to come in with lower performance than Zero's entry level model. But this also isn't even going to be likely a light electric motorcycle. This is going to be a middle class, so we could be looking at 10, 12 kilowatt hours. The motor, it's also a much simpler design, just from the Aero architecture patents we've seen, which Aero is their modular platform they're building this on. We know that it's a simplified motor compared to the Revelation motor that's on the LiveWire One, that runs sort of down the long axis of the bike and uses that 90-degree bevel gear to turn it 90 degrees to line up with the rear wheel. So this is a much simpler motor in a direct drive setup like a Zero. So, we have some vague idea of how the bike's designed, but really it's, there's just been so little information yet from Harley-Davidson that this could go in so many different directions. Even the two images that were released years ago have some significant differences in the designs, and it's been years since those images have been released. So, this is such an open question that I'm super excited. I'm on the edge of my seat for the next 3 days waiting to see what Harley does here, because I think this will really be sort of a turning point for the company. Either they're going to open the door to younger riders without the kind of disposable income it takes for a LiveWire one, or they're going to sort of cement themselves as a luxury brand that isn't really affordable to the common man.
Yeah, and last question, I think, is it possible that they're going to release like a line of bikes here, or is it this one specific thing that we're looking for?
So they're almost certainly going to unveil just this one bike, but the platform this bike is built on is expected to be used for more electric motorcycles, including a lighter weight electric motorcycle. So this could be the beginning of a line.
Oh, that's interesting. All right, cool.
Yeah,
Looking forward
there's
to
a lot of
that.
possibilities.
Yeah, maybe they'll drop some more teasers or something for upcoming stuff
Hopefully.
at this launch. All right, dueling electric motorcycles set new cannonball run record in daring race across the U.S.
So Cannonball Run, for anyone not in the know, is driving or riding as fast as you can across the country. Usually it's done from New York to LA, but you can go either way. And there are records set for all sorts of different categories, for gas powered cars, electric cars, gas motorcycles. What's interesting is the electric motorcycle category of the Cannonball Run is still kind of wide open, because anyone really with an electric motorcycle can just go out and try it. When it comes to cars or even gas motorcycles, people are like wearing catheters, taking seats out of their cars to put in bigger gas tanks. Like, you need a team to do that. But with electric motorcycles, because they're so new and there just haven't been that many attempts at the Cannonball Run, you can just go out and do it. And that's what these two guys did. Stephen Day started in LA and Robert Swartz started in New York, and they did have the support of Energica, who I think Robert Swartz owns an Energica dealership in New York, and Stephen Day just is an owner of a Energica bike, and they just decided to do this what they called Charging Across America Challenge, where they started on opposite ends of the U.S. and just crossed in the middle to race each other across the country and see just how fast they could do it. Unfortunately, Robert had to pull out partway through when his support van was rear-ended by a semi truck. Everyone was fine, fortunately, but the semi actually jackknifed and rolled over. So it was like not a very clean accident as far as swapping paint goes on the highway, but everyone was fine. Stephen Day continued on, and he crushed the 178-hour record. I think it was 178 hours set by Diego Cardenas on a Harley-Davidson LiveWire. Now, Diego did do it in like a fairly joyride fashion. It took him a lot longer because he was just sort of having fun. And again, like, there's just been so few attempts that you can just take your bike out and sort of go for it and make a record. Steven was able to do it much quicker, partly because you've got that DC fast charging on the Energica, and partly because the batteries are just so big. They go up to 21 kilowatt hours, which is massive for an electric motorcycle. So he was taking like hour-long, 90-minute long charge stops, which is actually even longer than you need. You can get the battery charged in less than that. But he was, grabbing some shut-eye and a folding chair while he was doing it. But coming in at 111 hours to ride across the country in a electric motorcycle, that's quite an accomplishment.
Yeah, I can imagine, because it's not like a cannonball run in a car where you're going to be staying awake the whole time, or maybe you have a partner who's driving while you're sleeping. This is like trying to catch an hour of sleep at the charging stops. Doesn't seem as, I want to say safe, like, but who knows?
Yeah, and a lot of the car records, they'll have, a team of people where they're swapping out drivers, right?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, so this is just it's you in the road for 111 hours.
So that's what, 24 hours, that's 4.5 days, something like that. So,
Yeah, that's a serious undertaking. It's not something I would want to do,
no.
but I think it's impressive to show that you can actually do long distance rides because that's, what I hear the most from people that are sort of against the switch over from electric or from gas to electric motorcycles is that like, you lose the ability to do touring, you can't ride long distance. Well, if you've got a couple days or, 4 days, you can ride across the US. So I don't want to hear anymore that you can't do long rides.
Right. And 4 days and not much sleeping. Did it say, like, did he take, like, an overnight or something at a hotel? Or did
I don't
did he
think so. He,
just slept on the
um,
chair?
yeah, so I actually met him a few weeks ago in New York at an Energica event, and he said he's got this little sort of folding camp chair that he just pops out, and he can get an hour of sleep is enough for him to keep going for a while, which is impressive because I couldn't do that. After a couple of days of getting an hour of sleep, I would not be I wouldn't trust myself to operate a high power electric motorcycle.
Yeah, that's where my mind's at as well. Well, good for him.
Yeah, way to
Yeah.
go.
Yeah, and proving that you can drive cross country. All right, last one. Start your week with this 30-mile-per-hour electric skateboard with tank treads instead of wheels.
This is one of my favorite stories from the last week or so. This is the Vendetta built by this Australian guy that, of course, has had to come out of Australia because like all the
Was it
most
Bruno?
awesome lethal. And no, it wasn't Bruno, but
Okay.
I'm sure he would get a kick out of this. This is an electric. It's not even an electric skateboard, but that was the closest thing that I could describe it as. It's almost like a powered snowboard or any board, but it uses tank treads instead of wheels. So you control it like a skateboard or a snowboard. It's all about leaning your body, but you've got serious, surface area in terms of connecting to the ground. What they said is that it's got like 4 times the tire surface area of a dirt bike. So this thing goes like 30 miles an hour. It lays down. I mean, it's a tank meets a skateboard. That's like the only way to describe it, I think.
Can it work in snow, like uphill?
So there are different attachments for the front where you can have either skis if you're going to use it on snow, or they even make like sort of ice skate attachments, like blades that if you want to use it on ice, that you can use it on all sorts of different terrain. And I
Interesting.
mean, the thing is, it's crazy looking, but also it looks like it works really well. Like the guy can ride over anything. He rode over another electric skateboard and like put a bicycle on its side and rode over a bicycle. I mean, the things you expect a tank to do, he does on a electric skateboard with tank treads.
Are you actually bolted in, or is he just using gravity there?
I don't actually see any like toe clips or anything.
Yeah,
I mean, it looks like he's just standing on it, which seems like not the best way to do this, but maybe if you're gonna bail, that's better.
right. Yeah, I feel like, my background's mostly in snowboarding, so with this kinda thing. So I would prefer to get bound into this thing, uh, if I were it looks like a ton of fun, but also kind of risky. But I guess
Yeah,
that's the I wanna jump off it type of mindset.
yeah. Well, if you gave me the option, I think I would prefer not to be strapped to it, just because I don't know how long I'd be staying upright on this thing.
Right,
But I mean, the control looks incredible. It's got, I don't know if you call that full suspension, if there's suspension in the middle, because both ends are kind of suspended.
right.
Um, and I mean, it's got, a wireless controller, just like an electric skateboard.
Mhm.
And it seems like he's, got full control of the thing. Obviously, this guy, Dan Baldwin, he's the inventor, so he's going to have more experience on it than anyone. But it doesn't seem like a hard to control vehicle or something that you'd be getting thrown off all the time. And if anything, maybe having that much surface area on the ground by using tank treads is an even better way to ride because you just have so much connection, and it seems quite stable in my opinion.
Yeah, it looks like a fun way to snowboard uphill or something as well. It's
Yeah, yeah, definitely. If anyone wants to find this thing, it's called the Vendetta. So just search Vendetta electric skateboard or tank skateboard or something like that, and I'm sure you'll find it because this thing
yeah,
is just I don't even know how to describe this.
yeah.
It's
Make a
another one I'm
video
glad it
and
exists.
send it to us. We would love to see it. All right, that's all for the stories. We have a bunch of comments. If you guys do have any comments, the 60 or so people watching, just put them down and we'll get to it by the end here. We have a lot of LinkedIn comments today. The first I see is Maxim Sakhanov, who's saying 173 watts for 10 kilometers. I believe he's talking about that ultralight bike kit.
I think it was the Mini
Oh, is that the
Cooper
Mini?
bikes, I think, or the Cooper, I
The
guess,
Cooper, right?
bikes. Yeah, yeah, I think it was 173 watt hours, so not super long range. I think, to be fair, probably a little more than 10 kilometers, but maybe not that much more.
Yeah. All right. Newman Awan says, "How do you look at the future of e-bikes in Asia?" That's a pretty wide. Asia's quite big, and the e-bikes subject is pretty big. But do you have any insights
To
there?
to put it in a nutshell, I would say Asia's electric bicycles are very different than what we see in the West, in that they're often these sort of moped style, but not as in a like Super 73 moped, more like these smaller wheeled, put three people on a bike all together, kind of almost like a Vespa scooter meets a electric bicycle. So that seems to be the path that Asia has chosen, just because they're extremely utilitarian, and I can't imagine that changing in the next few years
All right. Kareem Khan asks, "Why don't bikes come with baskets anymore?" Great question.
because they can charge you more to
Right.
add a basket. That's why.
And there's so many types of baskets. Do you want wicker? Do you want metal? It should be up to you. And also, there's actually an easy way to put baskets on bikes now that you can just take them off and carry them around. So you kind of should just get your own style. Uh, so there's some advertising going on here. So I can't delete LinkedIn stuff, but there you go. Are you familiar with the Gen 3 Groove?
That one I'm not familiar with. I did spend some time on the Outcross, but I'll have to check out the Groove because I can't tell you much about that yet.
All right. Pedro Fernandez says, "Do you predict that Electric Light will be their best seller?"
I don't think so.
Hmm.
It is a really cool bike, but I think it's really going to appeal to the people that were looking at the $1,000 XP 2.0 and said, it's a little rich for my blood. I think that the amount of value you get by spending $200 more than the $800 light when you move up to the XP 2.0 is worth it for anyone that has an extra $200 to spare. So for that reason, I think the 2.0 is still going to be the best seller, but I think the light will open up the market a little more on the lower end for them.
All right. Here's a question. Is a 60-volt, 35 amp hour battery too much for an e-bike? I think that sounds like what's on a Suron, maybe.
Yeah, it's pretty close. There's no such thing as too much for an e-bike. So I
That's
have a problem with the
that's the right
question.
answer. It's a trick question. There is no answer. There's nothing you could say that would be too much. All right. Moving forward, how do you feel about mid-drive versus hub drive? That's the biggest question in e-bikes, really. Who will prevail in the long run?
Yeah, what do you think?
Uh,
I'm not sure it's a matter of prevailing because they offer,
yeah,
different advantages.
I feel like they're both gonna prevail, but it's weird to me because I think from a design standpoint, like a high level standpoint, a hub motor makes the most sense. But that said, with mid drive bikes, I have like the best experience, which doesn't make sense to me at all. Like
Yeah,
it's like smoother and easier with a hub drive or a mid drive, but a hub drive should be better. But what do you think?
I mean, in some ways, I compare it to, you know, when automatic transmissions came out, it wasn't the death of the manual transmission in cars. There's still going to be people that want a more, I'm driving my car experience. And so manual transmissions have stuck around. And with mid drives, originally they came out before, I want to say they came out before hub drives. It could be that, the original like Yamaha 1990 something hub drive was first, but generally these cheap mid drive kits were more popular in the beginning. And then hub motors came out and they made everything cleaner and easier to use. But mid drives still offer a lot of advantages. So I think that the people who want to have a more cycling experience, they want to be able to run through their gears and have more control over their e-bike, are still going to like the experience of using their motor through a drivetrain with a mid drive. But the simplicity of a hub motor and the ability to create a lower cost e-bike is never going to go away. There's always going to be people that love that, especially on the entry level end of the spectrum. So it's just really going to come down to which advantage is right for you.
Yeah, and there's so many different companies doing both. Like for instance, Luna. We're going to take a look at their two most recent bikes, and Luna, which is kind of famous for their mid-drive bikes, just came out with a hub drive motor. And then on the flip side, companies like I'm trying to think, what's the Stromer? Not Stromer. Stromer is a hub drive motor, but Sondors, which is kind of famous for having the hub drives, just released some mid-drive stuff, and I believe somebody else was doing that. Anyway, companies are going back and forth, so I think there's room for both. Is the short way through that. Moving on, Sate Fate thought it had a mid-drive by the look of it, but no, it has a hub drive. Why do they keep going hubs? Kind of the same question. Mids are so superior, and you can externally gear them. So here's somebody with an opinion.
It's funny because I think they were talking about that C3STROM bike, and it does look like it has a mid-drive. And I think a lot of frames have like an option for a mid-drive there. It's like a cutout area of the frame that can hold a motor. But I think a lot of these frames are just designed so that OEMs can easily turn them into either mid-drive or hub drive bikes. But in that case, they're really going for value on that bike, and being able to bring it in with a $16.99 price tag, you wouldn't accomplish that with a mid-drive motor. So in that case, I think value won out over ride experience and torque and hill climbing of a mid-drive.
Yep. All right. Moving forward, Cellar Door AU says, "I wonder what is the future of electric bicycles." So even broader than the last question there. More range and more speed. What do you think?
Yeah, I don't see speed increasing too much because that's regulated. Range, I've seen it slowly increasing, but we just haven't had any monumental advancements in battery technology in the last 3 years. So, since the advent of high power 18650s, we've really only seen slight improvements like a 21700 format to get a little more battery in a case. So I can see small incremental increases in range over the next few years, but unless regulations change, I don't think we're going to be seeing too many high-speed e-bikes unless they're these sort of, off-road mode, wink, wink, unlock it at your own peril type of electric bicycles.
Yeah. Speaking of that, Kerry Woods says, Seth just changed the chain to a beefy quality chain. The problem with FREY is cheap chains. I feel like I had the best chain that I could possibly have, because when I did that damage, I was actually looking to upgrade chains, and there wasn't really much out there. I wonder what specifically in better chains is out there. Do you know anything like that?
I think, did you have the KMC chain?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the one that FREY recommends. And to be honest, it's any part that you increase in quality in that drivetrain, you're just going to break something else somewhere else in the drivetrain.
Down the line, right? Yeah,
Yeah,
and
so
I believe like the motor company was actually coming out with their own parts, Bafang. they were going to come out with their own chain and sprocket sets, but I don't think we have seen that yet. Is that right?
Yeah, it's speculated that they're working on it, but I don't think it's been confirmed.
Yeah, I guess they could take like light motorcycle moped type stuff and bring it down a little bit. So Tyler Donahoe says, "What if I get pulled over by the cops?" On that particular bike, you can just hit a button a few times and you're in level 2 or level 2. So theoretically, I would just say, "Hey, I've got beefy legs. I got going really fast, but I'm in level 2 now." So, or do you just outrun the cops? Yeah, that's a good point. I can just outrun the cops.
Two different people with or one person, two answers.
Right. Let's see. Moving forward, we're having a lot of conversation here. This is a good point. An hour of sleep is insane and not sustainable. So we're talking about the cross country thing. Yes, I feel like you're hallucinating from sleep deprivation. You got a case in court if somebody hits them. That's not good. So interesting comment on the skateboard thing. It's like a chainsaw on your feet. Works great for landmines. A snowboard on sand. Got some good comments there. Let's see. It's mostly just people talking amongst themselves. Jokes aside, that thing looks surprisingly capable, maybe to avoid many sharp rocks.
Agreed. Yeah, I was surprised how capable it really looked.
All right, Sankit San Wayne says, "How about an affordable classic motorcycle like e-bike, like a board track racer or chopper with ape hangers type?" We've seen some stuff. We've seen some ape hangers, but if you're looking for like a board track racer, um, I think we talked last week with the CEO of Vintage Bikes, and that's like a 40 mile per hour motorcycle ish e bike. And I think there's some more stuff coming from in that space as well. Wow, we got a lot of comments here. All right, so I wonder what is the future of electric bicycles? More range, more speed. I like to see more range and a tad more speed to commute with longer commuting routes. We talked about that a little bit. We don't really see it going in that direction necessarily. Let's see. I think we might be out of questions here. What's the name of the electric skateboard?
Yeah, a lot of fun discussion.
Yeah. Have you guys seen Fireball Tools YouTube video where he built a bicycle with a propeller on the back?
That's news to me.
That's like
Sounds interesting.
those Florida the gator boats or whatever.
The fan boats, yeah.
Fan bike. Okay, here's another one. Tom Stan's YouTube channel. He built a flywheel regenerative braking system for his bicycle. I like how he spelled braking there because it's a good question. Curious results. I wonder when that'll be possible for e-bikes. Have you ever seen a flywheel?
I think I remember seeing that video a while back, but I'm not
Okay.
sure that's ever going to be a practical solution. It's one of those, yeah, it's possible to build a proof of concept and it did technically work, but I'm not sure that's ever going to be a real solution on commercializable electric bicycles.
Yeah. All right. And the last thing is, do you think Harley-Davidson will come down market approaching Sondor's Metacycle at any point? And just for a little background, Sondor's Metacycle originally came out for around $5,000. So that's quite inexpensive. Do you think Harley's going to get anywhere near that, or where are we thinking?
I'm not sure if they'll produce an electric motorcycle to compete with the Saunders Metacycle, but what they may do is actually produce that sort of Super 73 styled electric moped or electric scooter that they showed off as a concept vehicle a few years ago. And if they increase the power on that enough, that's a mid-motor, very nice looking sort of electric moped that could end up competing potentially with the Metacycle, though it would require a pretty decent spec boost on what we expect that thing to do, because we figured it would start at something like 30 miles an hour and maybe they'd have like a 45, 50-mile-an-hour version. So to compete with what is supposed to be an 80-mile-an-hour motorcycle in the Saunders Metacycle, it may be a bit much for that model, but that's, I think, the closest they'll get to such an affordable electric motorcycle. I think anything in their full size, even lightweight electric motorcycles, is not going to be able to come down to $5,000 or $6,000, because that's just not a Harley price.
Yeah, and we did see some right when Harley said they were going electric. We did see some like prototypes of very lightweight bikes. So maybe that's how they get there. So I was going to say that was the last question, but a few more have rolled in since then. So EU guys have it so bad with 250 watt and 25 kilometer per hour limits. Only motor kit I found with a street legal mode is the CYC X1 series. Does Bafang have a street legal mode, or can we program it? I believe Bafang has something like that.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that Triton or whatever SUV or SUV RV camper boat thing we looked at is designed to be European legal, and it uses a 1500 watt Bafang Ultra motor. So they just have it programmed to European limits of 25 kilometers per hour, which is about 15 miles an hour. So definitely with Bafang units, you can program them to be EU legal.
All right. We're at just over an hour, so that's a good place to end it right there.
All right. Well, thanks for watching, everybody, and tuning in. We'll be back in another 2 weeks with all of the latest electric bike and other light electric vehicle news for you. We'll see you again in